Jerry Seinfeld, inviting you to join me with two of my best buddies, Larry Miller and Larry Charles, on the Abbott and Costello Marathon. That's September 12th, 10 hours of my second favorite sitcom, right here on Comedy Central. It's long, but it's really good. Watch it.
Watch Abbott and Costello meet Seinfeld today at noon only at Comedy Central.
Hi, welcome back. Jerry, Larry, and Larry, watching a little Bud and Lou with you. Hello, and welcome to Abbott and Costello meet us three guys. I'm Jerry Seinfeld. This is my good buddy, Larry Miller, comedian and person who I know. And this is Larry Charles, supervising producer of the Seinfeld Show, on which I have made many appearances. We are here today to celebrate the work of Abbott and Costello. We are at Bud Abbott's house that he bought in 1941 and lived until 1959. And we're going to watch 20 episodes of the classic Abbott and Costello TV show with you.
And it's worth saying that we, as kids, no kidding, and then as we got to know each other as friends and colleagues in this business, just adore these guys. If you have any interest in just really funny stuff, watch these. If you have any interest in being a performer, this is like going to college for you. Watch these guys closely. It's very silly, very funny, and a lot meatier than you may think.
And we're going to try to focus in on the TV show here and show some of the distinctions between the TV show and the movies, because there's a big difference. There's like a 20-year difference sometimes between what they were doing in the movies in that era and the era of the TV show, which is the mid-50s. And maybe we'll be able to highlight some of the various aspects of the TV show that were sort of distinctive and unique.
Okay, we're going to start with an episode called The Drugstore. And as you might imagine, it involves a drugstore.
And they need jobs again.
So then that episode marked the first appearance of all the characters, I guess, was Stinky and Sid Fields, who was really one of the great driving forces behind the show.
He's almost like the auteur of the show in a way.
Yeah, he wrote many of the episodes.
Plays multiple roles, as he will in the next episode.
The next episode we're going to see is The Dentist.
Right.
And, you know, the other great thing in these shows is the use of the sound effects that they would lay in later. There was no regard for reality, no concern with people aren't going to buy this, or it doesn't. When you take a hat off of somebody's head, there's no air escaping. There's no sound of a, of a jet plunger,
And it's hugely funny. I mean, people may not even notice it. We did this times, but whatever they do, they take a hat off, they pull something out of a pocket, and you'll hear or something.
But I would suggest the honesty comes in them saying to the audience, we're just going to be funny now.
Right.
That's all we're about. We're about being funny. We're not going to try to present some kind of realistic thing. It's going to be absurd, but it's going to be funny. And that's what they're telling the audience. And that's real, and that's still honest, and that's still vital. Even today, I think that's one of the reasons that the show still works, actually. There's no pretensions about it.
Yeah.
One thing we discussed last night, which is that in those days, in movies as well as on their show, there was no problem with saying Joe Besser is a little boy.
Yeah,
dress him as a little boy. He's a 57-year-old man on the show, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you just say he's a little boy, the audience will buy it and laugh.
That's right.
So this is The Dentist, and watch for Sidney Fields taking off Lou's hat in the dentist office. It's a very unusual sound. Hi, welcome back. Jerry, Larry, and Larry, watching a little Bud and Lou with you. Welcome back to Abbott and Costello meet Seinfeld. I'm here with the two Larrys, and we have just enjoyed watching the dentist's office, where when Sid Fields took the whatever that thing, I don't know, in the toothaches in the early part of the century.
How did that help?
Yeah, you had to wear a thing around your head for some reason. There was no
it was barbaric, really.
Yeah,
That was International Semaphore for Toothache.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right, so this episode coming up now is the Jail, which is really a classic. You shouldn't miss this one. If you only see one, this is the one you've got to see, because it contains the classic Niagara Falls routine, probably the most famous vaudeville routine that is in these episodes.
Performed expertly by Sidney Fields again.
Right.
Showing off his versatility, playing two roles in this episode. Don't also miss he's the attorney, where he does the whole slapping the writ thing also. His plan for how he's going to get Lou out of trouble with the bucket. So
First, I slap on a writ of habeas corpus.
That's right.
They were always barraging him with all
Yeah,
sorts of technical terms that he could never comprehend.
And leading to a huge joke of all these writs, and he just says, well, I just like putting on the writs.
Right.
And it sounds goofy as a play on words, but with their undeniable rhythm, trained in vaudeville, it's hugely funny.
And Lou is kind of the sane man and the straight man in this also. I mean, and Sidney Fields is really playing off of him as the straight man, which is kind of interesting.
But listen to how beautifully written the Niagara Falls routine is. And also watch for Mike the Cop.
I was just going to say. On the strangest beat in police work.
Right, wandering through Lou's backyard.
That's his beat.
Welcome back to Abbott and Costello Meet Seinfeld. I'm Jerry. I'm here with my buddies Larry Miller and Larry Charles. You just enjoyed watching The Jail. Speaking of the pitiless rays of the tropical sun, we're here at the backyard of Bud Abbott's house. And we're getting ready to watch now the
Army Story.
The Army Story, which has some wonderful work by Hilary Brooke.
Right.
One of our favorite characters in the series. And
a great enigma.
yes, an odd, sophisticated, tall ingenue who somehow fell in with these two ne'er-do-wells.
She had 3 inches on Bud Abbott.
That's right.
And also, folks may know her from movies like Jane Eyre and The Enchanted Cottage. She's a terrific actress, actually, and wound up, we don't know how, through what agency, you know, meeting they had.
There, yeah.
Suddenly, you're working with Orson Welles, and then you're saying, hello, Lewis.
She was the only one to call him Lewis.
Lewis,
for some reason, he was always Lewis.
Very formal,
very formal. And she seemed to have quite a thing for Lou, didn't she?
Yeah, she liked Lou. So that may be her whole problem in life, really, was that she liked Lou. She lived in the Tawdry rooming house. She had no life, really. So
Maybe she
was
tried to get this part. We don't even know.
Looked like
Bud
$1 million
never made a move on her either.
By the way, watch also.
Bud always backed off as soon as Lou and Hillary got together.
Yeah.
By the way, please also watch for this classic dice routine, the clubhouse routine. You will not see a funnier or better performed routine anywhere in comedy. And the whole episode's terrific anyway, but as soon as they start that, I'm going to con Lou into playing craps with us. Watch that closely, it's gorgeous.
And the skinny guy getting the shot.
Right.
There's a skinny guy getting the shot's a great bit player.
And Lou being in the Army, even though he's not a citizen of this country, and the fact that they're 45 to 60 years old and they're in the Army.
I hope you're enjoying watching these brilliant boys. They are the boys, by the way. That's the great thing. Fields always calls them, you know, you boys need to...
And they're partners, too.
Yeah, they're partners.
They live in the rooming
house. And they're roommates, but nothing's ever mentioned about that. Yeah.
Well, there was no need to mention that.
It was okay.
Yeah, that was normal. That was a completely...
Right, you could have a partner and a roommate. Today, there would be a slightly tawdry aspect put on that, but in those days, you could just be...
It was normal. It was as normal as having a 60-year-old man in shorts called Stinky.
Right.
I mean, it was all normal, apparently.
And, of course, they never changed outfits throughout the entire season. There were 2 years of this series, and in this group we're watching now, you'll notice it's the exact same clothes in every episode.
I think all the episodes were shot in one day, actually, which was amazing.
Much like this.
A lot like this.
By the way, as we've talked about, it's worth mentioning, there's a great historical value to watching these. If you love comedy or if you want to be a comic, the difference between these fellas growing up and working in burlesque, the difference between that and vaudeville is so apparent in watching the way they start their bits, watching the way that it's so clean, there's no fat on it at all. They walk right in and they just go, say, you know, what's funny, I was talking to the man down the street the other day and he said to me, say, what are you talking about, buddy?
All the bit players, everyone has a strong, clear voice that you just don't hear anymore. People just coming, how dare you remind me of someone I hate? You know,
Bang,
it's just
and a slap in the face.
And these may be these people's specialties, parts that they played over and over again for 20, 30 years. The slap in the face woman, the laughing guy, the sneeze guy, you know. This was probably their thing that they did on stage in burlesque houses across the country for years, you know, the same thing over and over again.
Very powerful
here's the charity bazaar. Welcome back to the Abbott and Costello Meet Seinfeld show. Here's an episode that was going to come on next. It's called Peace and Quiet. I'm saying it's broken and Lou is having trouble sleeping. Now, people always ask me, you know, what show is your show like? And I always answer Abbott and Costello because that's a typical kind of synopsis that we would use to describe one of our episodes.
A show about nothing.
Yeah.
He has trouble sleeping and then winds up in a mental hospital somehow. Which is exactly the trajectory of our show. That's exactly what happened.
You're the 1, 2, 10 job.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Suddenly you get a sleep record. That's it, we're relaxing now. And next thing you know, you're in what they used to call the crazy house.
Right, the nut house.
Today, of course, that would be too sensitive to say something like the nut house.
One of my favorite characters in the series is Mike the Cop, who was always referred to as Mike the Cop.
Right.
He has no last name. He's not Michael. He's Mike the Cop.
He has no superior, and yet he's only Mike the Cop also. He's only an officer.
He represented all forms of authority, whether it be social, legal, when Costello would try and leave the courtroom, Mike
was the bailiff all of a sudden.
He was the bailiff. All of a sudden he was there.
And
It's like Attila the Hun, Mike the cop. It was the same kind of name.
He beats on Lou the way the cops beat on Rodney King also. I mean, he really brutalizes the man, and yet nothing is done about it.
Well, they all beat on with it. That's another thing to watch for. These cracks in the face are hysterical because Abbott cracked him in the face.
Yeah.
And when the woman hit him with the umbrella on the head, how dare you remind me of someone I hate, bam!
Yeah.
Right.
They were hitting each other.
When you talk about reality, there's some real violence going on here, and that was real for these guys, I'm sure.
Again, today that's not good, but we think it's funny.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome back. Hi, welcome back. Jerry, Larry, and Larry watching a little Bud and Lou with you. Hi, welcome back. We're getting ready to watch one of our favorite episodes called Hungry, which is a lot of food bits in this one, and there's a classic bit in here where Bud and Lou go to the restaurant, which has identical twin waitresses, but they only have enough money for one sandwich, which of course will be Bud's, and then Lou has to pretend that he's not hungry, but Bud never seems to help him once they get into the situation.
He changes gears all of a sudden and keeps talking Lou, of course, into ordering something, and each time Lou finally gives in, he gets, speaking of slaps in the face, a real first-class wallop, and then they go through the whole premise again. Why did you tell me? Why did I want? Don't listen to me. You're very persistent, ...
And Bud doesn't bother explaining the whole premise to Lou till they're in the restaurant sitting down. Then he has to explain to him.
Right, then he calls them away.
He says, oh, by the way, we only have enough money. But it's great. Again, watch the undeniable rhythm that they grew up in burlesque and vaudeville, and this is what makes these guys so hugely funny.
Yeah.
You can take a premise that's tissue thin and just keep dancing on it.
And if that bit's not enough, it's followed by the oyster stew bit, which is also one of their other classic bits.
Right, where they go to have some soup, and there's a clam that keeps shooting Lou in the face. But anyway, you want to talk about tight. Comedians always talk about tight. This is tight. There's Bud and Lou in Hungry.
Dense comedy at its best.
Hi, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry Miller, Larry Charles, discussing Bud Abbott and Lou Costello here at Comedy Central. Hi, welcome back to Abbott and Costello Meet Seinfeld. I'm here with comedian Larry Miller and top TV writer Larry Charles. And we are enjoying fully the wonderful work of Abbott and Costello that was done in the 50s on television. These are excerpted from a series that ran 2 years. There's 2 different theme songs and 2 different outfits for each cast member. And they did 52 episodes, of which we're watching 20. This has the Susquehanna Hat Company, a true vaudeville classic.
Yeah.
And
located at 222 Flugel Street.
That's right.
Should be pointed out, I think.
And again, it's the bit players that really make this bit fly. I mean, there's people coming in off the street here. They just walk in. They've been rehearsing this their whole lives. And they do it on TV.
That's what's so real about it, though, also, in a way. It's like urban chaos. I mean, it's like being in a city street, even though it's completely an absurd situation. It's like walking down the street, you have crazy people constantly, confronting you and being very aggressive with you. It's like walking down any street in America, really, in a way. So even though it's completely insane, it's very real at the same time.
And in line with this company of players, remember, these were the days in show business when people could be the laughing guy. They were known as the thing they did.
Right.
And that phone call, the Alexander 4444 phone call.
This is a really...
There are 4 people in a row who walk into that scene and just hit
bang,
the ball
bang,
right out
bang,
of the park.
bang. Here it is.
Go ahead.
Bud and Lou getting a job. Hi, welcome to Abbott and Costello Meet Seinfeld. There's a fascinating story about Bud being shanghaied, which he went into a bar in Brooklyn.
Apparently, yeah.
And was hit over the head. He was a teenager.
Right. This is around 1910 in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, in days when that used to happen. He stopped in for a quick beer you could get when you were 14 or 15, and stopped in at lunchtime and got whacked on the back of the head and woke up on a tramp steamer and was away for 4 years. No telephones, obviously. Couldn't call home. And he was, in that old phrase, shanghaied. And you wake up on that tramp steamer, and the next thing you know, the guy says, bring the coffee to the captain.
Yeah.
And you do it, and it took him those 4 years to get back and walk in and say, hi, Mom, I'm back.
And that's where he got his coffee bit from being on the train.
Enjoy your coffee.
Enjoy your coffee, Captain.
And interestingly, came back on the very same boat.
Right.
He had a book passage and came back on the same boat. But they certainly took the roller coaster ride of life. I mean, starting out the way they did, and in burlesque, and into vaudeville, into movies, into television, and dying Penniless. Well, no, Lou had some money at the
I
end.
suppose so, yeah. I'm sure he had something. And but it's interesting, though, that with all the competition in burlesque and vaudeville and everything like that, that they managed to find each other and kind of move up the ladder. I mean, the competition at that time must have been fierce to get someone to notice you and to think, oh, this could work in film also. I mean, that's kind of a new idea at that time.
So here's Bud and Lou helping a little old lady and called The Little Old Lady. Hi, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry Miller, Larry Charles, discussing Bud Abbott and Lou Costello here at Comedy Central. Hi, welcome back. Jerry Seinfeld here with Larry Miller and Larry Charles, enjoying a little afternoon A&C. Hope you're enjoying along with us. We've been arguing here about if 7 actually does go into 28 13 times.
Look, the only way you can prove it to me is, finally, add them up and then I'll pay.
Add them up?
Add them up.
I'll give you twice the money. You know, Sid Fields, we've been talking, we watched a bunch of these last night, and we've been watching them along with you, and we just keep going over about the performance of Sidney Fields.
This was his big break in a way, and he really made the most of it. I mean, he steals a lot of these shows right out from under Abbott and Costello sometimes, playing multiple roles, his energy level. It's a whole different layer. It really makes the shows really work a lot of the time.
And it's just the tip of the iceberg of a community of players in vaudeville and burlesque that we never got to see, and this is really the last bit of it that you still can see the material and some of these great performers.
So it's like archival footage in a way, to a large degree.
We have to mention very quickly that this next episode contains the classic of all time, one of the finest comedy routines in writing and performing, the Who's On First baseball routine. This literally broke them through on the radio shows and then in the theaters all around the country.
I mean, it's so funny. You're going to watch this, you've seen it a million times, and you'll laugh again. Who's On First? And Larry, watching a little Bud and Lou with you. And we hope you're enjoying as we are. We were just discussing the police show, which is coming up next. It's called Police Rookies, where Bud and Lou enroll in the police academy. And that great coda at the end when Bud comes out. And of course, there's a lot of silliness with the cops and making fun of cops.
But to show you, we were talking about this when the different mood of the country, that Bud comes out and makes a curtain speech at the end that's saying, you know, hey, you know, we've been kidding around, but you know, and they're very conscious of the kids in the audience.
The kids, all the little children.
Right.
That, you know, we've been teasing the police, but you know, kids, and he looks right at the camera, you know, when you'll see, when you go up to a policeman, if you get lost, remember, he's your friend, and shows you, it's a very sweet little thing.
Very 50s.
Very different than now.
Yeah.
But that's sort of indicative of how different Abbott and Costello how far they had come from their origins in the 40s and the movies. I wanted to say one thing about Who's On First also, that I was thinking that they were kind of branded as lowbrow, you know, like Who's On First, lowbrow, but if Ionesco or somebody had presented that in a play, it'd be considered avant-garde, you know?
Right, the misdirection of it based on the shallow premise, but it was...
The absurdity of it was, right, exactly. So.
Again, there's nothing low about a laugh, whether it's slipping on a banana peel, as we know, or watching any kind of Paddy Chayefsky play. It's all,
but
if you laugh, it's
you're
great.
also getting a chance to see that in a different context, how the material is different also. Like in the 40s, coming out of World War II, Abbott and Costello represented kind of hope, you know?
So here they are,
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello, the police rookies.
Look toward him. He's there to help you. If you ever want any advice, don't be afraid of the policeman. Don't think he's a boogeyman. He's working for you. Let him give you his advice. That's what he's being paid for. He wants to be a big brother to you little boys and girls. So the next time you feel you're in a little bit of a tight jam, go to your nearest policeman and say, "Officer, would you help me solve this little problem?" And he'll help you. Because they're all a nice bunch of fellas.
That's the truth.
So long, kiddies.
Well said.
Remember that.
So long, ladies.
Hi, Jerry Seinfeld back here with Larry Miller and Larry Charles, enjoying the amazingly durable comedy of Abbott and Costello, which was most of the stuff you're seeing now was filmed in 54 and 55. So we're watching it 40 years later and still laughing. So it's quite an impressive accomplishment. As most comedy doesn't even age 2 or 3 years. You see people do material that sounds a little old, like even a couple of years after they started doing it. So this next show we're going to see is called The Haunted House, which is, you were saying, is a bit taken from the Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein movie.
Right, exactly. It's too bad we don't have a candle here to go back and forth. It's one of Lou's most famous routines, of course.
Well, I think they would rather watch the actual guy.
You
do
misunderstand. I was having a seizure.
It.
That was
Oh, I
not-
see.
Are you all right?
Are you all right now?
Better now,
Oh,
but
good,
you know, if
good,
you let me
that's
finish
good.
the cough, it would have been even better than that.
That's good.
Get Larry's medication.
So this is they go up to the haunted house and there's a lot of ghosts and
Hilarity ensues.
Right.
Hilarity
It's also worth
ensues.
inserting quickly that you're so right about a lot of comedy not enduring, that you see something now that's from the 60s, it looks very stylized, it doesn't wash, it doesn't hold up, but that's the reason burlesque and vaudeville held up. You'd think they could do those routines in 600 years,
Yeah.
assuming we're all still sitting by pools like this.
The comedy isn't about reference points or anything to do with its time. It has
Right.
to do with some kind of underlying thing that's always funny, no matter what period
That's very
it
true.
comes
Here's Abbott and Costello, the haunted house. Hi, welcome back. Watching the boys with the boys here on a very lovely afternoon here at Bud Abbott's backyard, circa 1941. And this next episode we're going to see is called The Music Lovers, a personal favorite of mine. And we just watched it recently, just a couple hours ago actually, and we were laughing at the unbelievable silliness that you accept on these shows, that Bud Abbott goes behind a piano with a recorded piano concerto so that Lou can impress Hillary's father, which was another tough buy.
Right.
The Hillary's father, that this man would, his offspring would be so different.
That she's a society girl, and
Yeah.
yet her father is
Eats a
a
hunk of salami.
salami-eating
Yeah,
hillbilly.
right.
Yet somehow they're related genetically. It doesn't make any sense.
And we were just also saying
Defies science.
we wanted to mention
It's beyond science.
Joe Kirk and his great work as
Right,
Botchkaloo, and
Mr.
a number of other characters.
I think it was Mr. Botchkaloo.
Well, he owns a record store here, and
Yeah.
he's a man of many interests. So
Yes.
he has a restaurant in one of the other.
And a very excitable fellow, a
Yes,
very short
yes,
fuse, and it didn't take much to set him
Well,
off.
you would be mad too if someone broke a very expensive record in your store.
That's right.
The way Lou does, accidentally
You
hitting
can't
it
really
against
blame
the
him.
cash register.
How do they get those records to just explode like that? They would just touch him on the head, and they would just absolutely break him
They
with
dip
thousands
them
of
into
pieces.
the liquid nitrogen, apparently,
You
first.
can't do that with a CD, by the way.
No, you can't do it.
That's why that kind of comedy is dead, unfortunately.
So anyway, here's a real classic, Abbott and Costello, The Music Lovers.
So, do you know how Cavalier Rusticana goes?
In fact, the piece, there are several of them, oddly enough, and the piece played at the end of Raging Bull
Yeah.
is a Cavalier
Right.
It's
Rusticana.
a beautiful piece of music.
And by the way, that Chopin Etude, which is what it was, is an extraordinarily difficult piece to play.
But Lou plays it so well,
Yeah,
doesn't
he
he?
does, especially with his feet and the side of his head.
Yes.
But that version, if you know that piece and you love it, that version on that record is one of the greatest I've ever heard. And I always, when I see that episode, no kidding, I want to know, I wonder who was playing that. It's a great
Oh,
version.
yeah,
of that
you're
one.
right, it is. If you
Seriously.
stop and think about that, dun, dun,
Dun,
dun, it's going to go all the way down the
dun,
keyboard.
It's very up-tempo, and the guy is great. And
Well, let's
he
call
knows how to-
Butch Blues Record Store and see if we can find out.
So coming
We'll have
up,
some
we have...
meatballs for us.
I'll have a single meatball waiting for us when we get there.
Now,
When
this
he
is-
pushes them, we've been just talking about this afternoon, when Costello has to get back to the piano, and he pushes off,
Harry Brook.
he decides
Right off
that
the track.
somehow that'll speed it up.
Yeah.
If he pushes them off,
Oh, to confuse her long
Throw
enough
them off,
so that
throw
they
them
won't
off.
notice
That's
he's not
right.
playing.
That's
they won't notice that he's not playing. And why Abbott couldn't stay awake for just a few minutes.
You'd think with 5 minutes he could stay awake, he
Yeah.
could force himself, but
And
maybe he
again-
had a problem at that
And
time.
again, as
that
we've
we
said,
don't
in
know
all
about.
seriousness, when you make that buy, though, they're so good.
Yeah.
And so organically funny. When you just make that buy,
Yeah.
it's just joy to watch.
Don't forget all the money that was spent on singing lessons, also before they found out that Hillary's father actually liked a piano player more than a singer.
Coming up, the
Hillary-
birthday party.
Hillary's birthday with Abbott and Costello. We'll watch it with you. Hi, welcome back. Jerry Seinfeld here with Larry Miller and Larry Charles in Bud Abbott's backyard, enjoying a little evening A&C. This next episode you're going to see is called The Politician, and once again, Bud has promoted Lou to seek public office. Bud never once considers a job for himself, something for himself. He completely takes advantage of this arrested development human. I mean, what is with Lou that he never seems to mature?
Well, I think a lot of it is guilt about having been a bad boy.
That's right.
Well,
so much of the
Bud's very
time.
passive-aggressive also. I mean, he was in desperate need of therapy, obviously, at that time, and a 12-step program, too.
Oh,
probably.
good. Yeah, that'll... Can you imagine that kind of consciousness we have today?
Yeah,
Would have
yeah.
just destroyed this gorgeous kind of comedy.
Well, their whole dynamic, right, would have been dysfunctional by today's terms, actually, so...
You know, the other thing we were talking about is how they did this show for a couple of years and then just kind of abandoned it, weren't interested, had no sense of what the power of a television series could be.
they wanted to be movie stars again, probably. They went back and made a couple of movies after the show that were not
that
financial
good, yeah.
successes. Dance with Me, Henry, and I think Abbott and Costello Go to Mars, I think were made after the TV show.
But in a lot of ways, this stuff is better because it's some of their best stuff from the movies condensed into this short form, basically a two-reeler.
Quick word on this, just watch for, on this one coming out with the politician, that great routine where Lou winds up taking all his clothes off with the young girl who's very crying about her father.
Right. Bud and Lou, the politician. Hi, welcome back. Watching Abbott and Costello. This next one you're going to see is called The Wrestling Story, and it features Stinky, who was played by Joe Besser, who I'm sure many of you will recognize from his later work with, or I guess it was earlier with the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. No, it may have been later, actually. I'm not sure exactly when it was.
Shemp
I mean, he
came
may have
back
been
in after
shuttling back and
Curly's
forth, actually, at that point.
Well, Shemp came in after Curly's death, but that's another 10-hour special. I think.
Yeah. But he was really a particularly malevolent character in these shows.
Yes.
I mean, we were talking earlier about that one where he's trying to get Costello to stand in the street because he knows a car is coming.
Yes.
By the way, it's worth mentioning.
There's a hit. He puts a hit on Lou. That's all to me in my book, The Dark Side of Stinky, coming out of the fall. So.
You know, it really is worth mentioning once again, we mentioned it earlier, that in these days of movie making, and especially this being Abbott and Costello, there was no problem worrying about, well, what if he doesn't look like a little boy?
Yeah.
Right.
How
They were
could he play
perfectly willing to tell the audience, he's a little boy.
Yeah.
All right, he's a 59-year-old man in a little sailor suit. But once you buy that, it's just great comedy, and audiences will buy it. And I think they'd still buy it today. You don't have to have, now when they make a movie, obviously, they'll have 9 hours of makeup before shooting starts to make him look like an old man.
But that was what made this show great, because it was so slapdash and so kind of loosely done.
Right.
You know, I mean, if it was a movie, I don't think that's why this show falls in a certain range of their work. It's not the movies, it's not the stage work.
Right.
It's
a
a wonderful synthesis of all of them. So here's Abbott and Costello in
The wrestling match.
Thank you, Larry. Watching Abbott and Costello with you. I'm with Larry Miller and Larry Charles. And now we've discussed the absurd Hillary Brooke relationship with Lou, her father, Mr. Botchagaloop, Sidney Fields, the characters he plays. But truly, the most bizarre addition to this entire series was the idea of Bingo the Chimp.
That's right.
That these two guys who literally did not have a quarter for a sandwich would adopt, not as a pet, but as a son, a chimp.
And he's I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's in that era when it was really funny to dress a chimp up.
Yes.
Put him in pajamas or clothes, a little sneakers.
Well, he was often dressed as a miniature Lou Costello.
Right, with
Yeah,
the
that's
derby
right.
hat
But
on.
they were humanitarians. This is why they did it. Despite that they had no money themselves, yet they had to give their hearts to a little chimp. I think that's kind of sweet.
What was the story meeting there where they said, why don't we just put a chimp in the show?
I think they wanted to do kind of a Joseph Conrad Hearts of Darkness thing. And because there's the second part of the chimp episode is when they actually go to try to find, as we know, Bingo's father in Africa.
Bingo's father, yes.
Yeah, Bingo's father in Africa. So
because
they
Bingo was lonely.
It's like an apocalypse now for Abbott and Costello. So
A journey
they
back
go
up
down
the river.
That's right.
That's right, where they go to find Bingo's father, who is a gorilla, really one of the worst gorilla suits ever constructed in all of Hollywood history.
Which, of course, makes it even funnier.
I think it's the only gorilla suit. It was the one that was used in the Bowery Boys and everything else. It's the same gorilla suit.
Same gorilla suit.
Somebody rents that suit out. To this day, you can still rent that suit.
And they've got it in this episode. Abbott and Costello, the chimp. All right.
Well, just one word
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
on the gorilla suit guy before we move on. One of the things that's always cracked us up is that the cliche, our image of Hollywood was always that I wanted to see on the studio lot going to lunch, the gorilla guy with carrying the headpiece talking to the Roman soldier on the way to the commissary.
Right.
You know,
Pushing the tray along with the Roman soldier, right, that's funny.
I just wanted to say very quickly that Abbott and Costello in the 40s, I tried to make the point before, they were sort of symbols of hope. There was the end of World War II, there was a lot of hope in America. By the time they were working in the 50s, the TV show is kind of existential in a way. They have no hope at all. Unlike Crandon, they have no dreams whatsoever. They're just trying to get the back rent. They're trying to catch up. They're so far behind, you know. And it's very similar in a way to Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, which came out in 1954. In fact, the characters in Waiting for Godot are almost exactly the same as the characters on Abbott and Costello. Vladimir and Estragon are like Abbott and Costello, and Pazzo, who comes in, is sort of like Sidney Fields, who's kind of like the boss of the two idiots, you know? So there's a lot of existential drama was really very tied to Abbott and Costello in an unconscious way, and I think it's kind of an interesting correlation there.
There is, and I just wanted to add to that, that's not a larger setup as a joke because it sounds wordy and something you might not hear about very much. It's actually true. Hoping against hope, and the fact
Right.
that their whole perspective has changed as the country's perspective
Well, the
did,
50s was already post-nuclear, the atomic
Right.
tests had taken place.
So here it is for you at home and Roseanne Arnold, Little Beckett in Abbott and Costello. Now, the 20 episodes that have been selected for this little tribute have been chosen by my esteemed colleague, Larry Charles. And am I correct? You picked most of them from the first
Right.
year. There were 2 years of the show. They did 20, there were about 52 altogether.
Right.
And we've been watching mostly the first year.
Those are usually much more intense episodes, much more dark, much more unpredictable, much less sitcom-y, in fact. And the episode we're about to see, actually, is from the second season when they made a complete upheaval in the show. It made it much more into a typical sort of a sitcom.
Now, do you think they ran out of material, and that was the reason that they decided to... I mean, the second year of the show is all these stories. It's very slow. It's like more acting.
Yeah,
It's not so broad.
They changed the show from top to bottom, as we were saying. They changed the theme song, the credit sequence, and the whole style of the show. They forced Sid Fields into playing the role of the landlord, which is much more predictable, much less exciting, much less fun. The reasons for it, I mean, we could speculate. I mean, I kind of think that maybe they were tired of doing the same routines and thought this was a chance to kind of get more into something else, you know. It was an experiment, perhaps.
So let's try and do the two. The two theme songs are...
Okay.
That's
They
that's from
switched.
the second season, though. The first season was da-da-da-da-da, with a montage of their movies. They wanted to connect to the movies.
So here's from second season, Uncle from New Jersey, Bud Abbott, Lou Costello.
And watch the difficult hiatus they had. You can see that they've had a kind of a
They've
bad
aged.
time.
So have we. Well, it's been great fun to sit here and talk about Abbott and Costello. Actually, the whole genesis of this thing is that a lot of times Larry will come down to the set of the show and we're filming and we'll all sit around. And the number of times that we sit around and talk about Abbott and Costello, it's really been great to do it here for the fans. And we hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a privilege for us to pay homage to these people that really kind of started us on our way, and not only stylistically, but just for making us laugh so much as kids, and it's really been a pleasure. So from Bud Abbott's backyard, here at Comedy Central.
Good night, neighbors.
Good night, neighbors.
You're at Comedy Central.